I got IV fluids. I still felt horrible. I went back to the hotel, and the next day at the airport I collapsed again. And the EMTs came again, and it was like a repeat of this situation the day before. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna make it home. I could not walk through the airport. I would just collapse, and the same thing would happen where the sounds would get muffled and my vision would start to go and my knees would get weak, and it was just like I was slowly just drifting away, and it was absolutely horrifying. And I look back at it and I don't even quite know how I ever did make it up the steps of the plane to get home. After that, it was just a repeat. Every day I would go to the hospital and they would send me home and they would say, "You're fine," but I would say, "My heart is 175 and my blood pressure is 80/30. How can I be fine?" They would say, "You're young, you're small, that's a normal blood pressure for you." I knew it wasn't normal for me. I knew that something was very, very wrong. So over the course of the summer of 2005, I was in and out of hospitals. I had roommates who were 90 years old who kept me up at night. And I was just terrified because the scariest part of the whole thing was that I knew I was deathly sick and nobody knew what was wrong. And to have these doctors just come in and out of the hospital room every day and say, "Your tests are fine, you can go home." And my parents literally had to put me into a wheelchair and wheel me into the car, carry me into my bed. I lost the ability to walk without fainting. I was so weak that I couldn't lift a fork to eat. And I, one day during my little niece's birthday party, got so sick again where I started to go in and out of consciousness. And I knew I have got to get to the hospital now. I mean, something is horribly wrong. And nobody was willing to drive me to the hospital that day because of the party, and they thought I was exaggerating. So I made the stupid decision, which I am telling you guys never to make, and I drove to the hospital myself. Ended up passing out and having to pull over on the side of the road, and thank God I pulled over and I got warning enough where I didn't faint while driving, because I wouldn't even be here today. And these are the types of dangers that lie in this illness being undiagnosed. And that is what really breaks my heart, because there are so many dangers involved in not knowing what is wrong. And I drove to the hospital to have the same thing told to me. "You're fine, go home." And there was even a nurse who looked at me in the eyes, and this was during a stay where I stayed for like a week and they couldn't find anything. And they tested me for everything under the sun and nothing came back. And I was beginning to think I was crazy. And so this nurse, she looked at me, and she was young, probably about 24, and she looked at me and she said, "Put on your makeup and go out with your friends and stop coming to the hospital." And I'm like, I'm sick. And my heart was just breaking. I couldn't for the life of me understand what was happening. That whole summer I went to bed thinking that I wasn't gonna wake up in the morning. I started seeing things differently. If I could get outside and I could lay on the grass and I could see the dragonflies and the trees and the sky, I was just like eternally grateful for that. And I realized just how much I had taken for granted and how much in life was so small and so petty. And I forever was changed. The light at the end of the tunnel is really that I am a better person. Because of this, I live my life in such a better way. And these are things that I would never change in a million years. What eventually ended up happening was I had to go on Google, and I could barely crawl to my computer. I had to search my symptoms, and I came across a support group and had my father call the woman, because at this point I was too sick to even pick up a phone. And she referred me to a doctor in Virginia, and I will never forget the drive there. I looked out the window and I thought, wow, well, there's so much beauty in the world, and I want to be here. I want to experience that. Just, God, please let me be okay. And when I got my tilt table test done and I looked in my doctor's eyes, and he looked at me and he said, "You have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome." I was elated. I thought, it's not something life-threatening. It's something, they've given me a diagnosis. I don't have to wonder anymore. And I cried tears of joy that day. I also knew that from that moment forward, my life was going to be tough. There was going to be challenges that I was going to have to face that maybe other people wouldn't even understand. And that I would have to always work a little harder to get where I wanted. I really struggled. I ended up going to the hospital in Virginia for 2 weeks to try different medications to find out which one worked. And I got put on 3 medicines that really helped. And I remember the first time I walked again, I was holding my doctor's hand and he said, "It's okay, you're not gonna faint." And I was like, "I don't wanna faint." And he held my hand and he walked me down the hall. I got to the end and I thought, this is a long road. This is like learning to walk again, but I'm gonna do it. He told me everything was gonna be okay. It certainly didn't feel okay. It's been 5 years since all of that. And in the last couple of years, I've really started to feel okay. Like I've started to realize that I have an illness, but it doesn't control my life, and that there are ways around it, and I've learned to accommodate myself and to love myself anyway. And it's been a rough road, and I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of potential friends. I've lost a lot during this. I've grown distant from people. I've changed so drastically. In some ways, I've lost a bit of myself, but there are pieces of myself that I will never lose, and that is my strength and my determination and my love for life. Those things are things that I will always carry with me. I'm not going to ever let POTS get in the way of that. The next 5 years, they were filled with a lot of trials, and since then it's been a slow, terribly slow process of getting to where I am now. And the wonderful thing about it is that every step has been like a milestone. Every baby step has been a big accomplishment for me. Just being able to walk down the street. When I got to the end of the street, I was like, I did it! This is like incredible. I'm at the end of the street. I walked. I took a walk. Everything became so exciting. It became like little things were big things. Just going to the post office was huge. I'd get in my car and I'd be like, got my mail. And yeah, so little things became huge, and little things are still huge for me. If I can take a class, it's a blessing. Sometimes I get frustrated, but at the end of the day, I know that I'm blessed. And I have times where I get very down and I can't see life like this and I just want to give up. But at the end of the day, I'm blessed, and I'm even more blessed because I've had an illness that has made me see how blessed I am. I just want everybody out there to know that if you are sick and you are undiagnosed and you know that you're sick and your heart is telling you that there's really something wrong, but your doctors aren't listening, please fight. Do not give up. Just keep trying. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will find what you're looking for. And don't, as my good friend Andrew says, do not take no for an answer. Just keep fighting and fighting until you get what you're looking for. And it does get better. It really does. You will get through it. And you'll share your story. Whether you share it online or you share it with just one person, your story will be inspiring to people. And I hope that mine inspires some of you, and that it sheds some light. I know when I first got sick, I was looking for stories. I wanted to see if people's stories sounded like mine. I feel stronger for having told it, and thank you so much for listening and for giving me the opportunity to share it with you guys. And I will end this by saying I bought this hat when I was in Oklahoma, and it's kind of twisted now, but I bought it when I was there. I'm still the same person I was. I just came back with a different hat. I just came back with a different mindset and with a new way of looking at life. And I wouldn't change that for the world.